It is the final day of the first weekend, the final games of the round of 32. It's the best weekend in all sports, and it's the last day of it. Still plenty of games, great action, and we're previewing it all right now with the sickos next to me, Joe Tansey and Mark Henry Jr., all presented by AAA. Be ready, get AAA, and be ready for all of the games today. I do real quick, Joe Tansey, who's in the middle of this broadcast, and also Mark Henry Jr. on my left side here, probably your right side. But for me, I think the overall theme yesterday was favorites. What do we make of that yesterday? Mark, I'll start with you. What do we make of favorites almost dominating the entire day? I think they all won straight up. Some of them didn't cover against the spread. I think only one or two, and then one pushed. But it was a big favorites day, a lot of chalk. Sportsbooks were not happy because the public won big. What do we make of a day like that?
I think what we make of a day like that is that people should form their opinions on games based on the matchups, based on the numbers, instead of saying, "Oh, I haven't seen anyone on this team," yeah. Or wait, that's a dumb play. That's public. You guys know I hate that in every sport. I talk about that all the time. It bothers me. I think it's a lazy way of analysis. I think it's a dumb way to gamble. And I think what you need to do is you need to take it by a case-by-case basis. And by the way, I think the natural inclination is, oh, well, the dogs are going to be barking today. And that could happen. But to me, it really has nothing to do in correlation with what happened yesterday.
No, it's the matchups today. I like the underdogs more today in their matchup. Yeah, it's a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and it's how I led my show off on the Tough Cover radio show yesterday. It's kind of like we get caught up, especially filling out the brackets. When we preview the brackets, we get caught up in these universal narratives where it's like, oh, well, the bid stealers will all do this. And it's like, well, some did well. One got to the Sweet 16 and one got smoked in the first round in New Mexico. So, like, there's all these things, like these injured teams, Kansas, Northwestern, and Florida. Everyone was picking against them in the first round. 2 won and one lost. So I just think everything is a case-by-case basis. You have to look at these things matchup by matchup instead of just these sweeping universal narratives and the whole, public money nonsense.
Yeah, Joe, is that sort of the same sentiment that you share as well with Mark, or is the round of 32 just for the favorites sometimes, just because we are getting, some of those 14 seeds that are going up now against better competition, or they have to continue to play as well as they did in the previous round. It's a little bit tougher for these lower seeds to continue to play well throughout the tournament and the round of 32 and Sweet 16. But what did you make of yesterday's game?
I loved it because I hate double-digit seeds in the Sweet 16.
Okay, fair enough. Joe Tansey does not like Cinderella. Cinderella, just shatter that glass slipper.
Yes.
Joe does not like it. The pumpkin, let it rot in hell. Yep. Joe Tansey. So does Mark. All right, Cinderella. You know what? You suck, Cinderella.
So it devalues the second weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it does. I mean, look Oakland, perfect example. Great story. They beat Kentucky. But there is no way in hell they were going to be able to compete in a Sweet 16 game. Absolutely none. So, like, why even bother rooting for that? Because at least at NC State, they're a power conference
Because we like
team.
fun. Because we like new. Because Oakland isn't going to be here again in a long time.
Right,
but then
when we
don't you like the story, Joe? Don't you like the story?
But then when we sit here on Thursday and Friday and be like, oh, why are we watching a 30-point blowout?
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a lot different. Like
that's the gambler inside of you. I feel like that is.
No, it's not actually. It's
I feel like it is.
It's a college basketball fan inside me. I realize.
No, if you're a college basketball fan, you got to like the dogs. You got to like Cinderella. It's part of college basketball. It's part of the story.
I like it in the first round.
I agree.
I think this is
you party
because look, we only have so many games left of college basketball, right? And you want these Sweet 16 Elite 8 matchups to be elite, basically. You want them to be the best competition going up against each other. I mean, look at it. Iowa State, Illinois is a perfect example of that. It is a fascinating matchup. It is defense versus offense. And as much as Duquesne is a great story, look at what they did against Illinois.
Yeah. Oh, I get that. Duquesne was not going to be fun to watch anyway. That's a slow, low-scoring team.
Right. Like, so certain teams – for sure, would love to see them in the Sweet 16. Like, James Madison can hold their own.
I was just about to say, there are some different cases. Like, James Madison's legit. That's a legit.
But when you look at some double-digit seeds, though, that win their first-round game, you're like, well, I don't want to see them in the second weekend.
I feel like you're just kind of calling out Oakland. I feel like you're just calling out Oakland here. You're glad that NC State beat Oakland.
No, because I've had this take for a few years now.
Okay.
The NC State thing, I actually think that game is like less of this than the others, because no matter what, we were getting kind of a lesser team from that matchup than
right, and we got the better
of the less. Yeah, for sure. But
so NC State's a lesser team. So we're not feeling like they maybe turned a corner in the ACC tournament. This team's a legit threat in some ways.
I mean, they're definitely better than they were early in the year. It's just hard for, and you'll hear me talk about it with a matchup that in today's game, it's hard for me to just totally divorce some of the results I saw in the middle of the season, not even dating back to November and the non-con, but some of the things in January, February that are really concerning there. So I just don't know if that's going to be able to take place against better teams. They got a break in being able to play Oakland in the second round instead of having to play a good team there. They played Texas Tech, a team who I was pretty high on. Turns out maybe wasn't all that good of a team. So, I think like a good example of this for Tansey is, and looking at today's games, and we're going to preview them on a more in-depth scale, but Duke Houston is a fun potential matchup in the Sweet 16. And I know JMU can hold their own, and I'm not even saying JMU can't win today. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But I think Houston Duke, I will be much more excited for than if it's Houston JMU. You could say the same thing for Yale and San Diego State. Give me a matchup of the national championship again from last year in UConn, San Diego State. Don't give me UConn Yale. Don't give me a 20 and a half.
San Diego State's kind of boring though.
Yeah, they're a little boring, but at least there's a storyline there. At least there's something.
Can I interject here?
Yeah.
Houston's boring too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's why they need Duke. I think they need Duke to spice up a little of the national like recognition for the game. Houston's boring in their own way, for sure.
Houston doesn't have any like hateable qualities, but it doesn't exactly have any like likable quality. Like
Kelvin Sampson's not a likable guy.
No, he's not. But you know exactly what you're getting from Houston game in and game out, right? And Kelvin Sampson's got a remarkable record getting the second weekend over these last 5 years. Like, if you look at one team that really hasn't had it's kind of been bulletproof basically in the first weekend, it's been Houston. I say that now and watch.
And the Zags, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So there are certain teams that are just built to get through the first weekend.
Mark Few. What a coach, and handle
it. Exactly.
What a coaching job.
It's beautiful, isn't it, by the way?
Yeah.
Who's a better coach, Mark Few or Kelvin Sampson?
Probably Few. Yeah,
I think. Kelvin Sampson's up there. I love what Kelvin.
I think it's really close, but gut reaction would probably go Few.
I think they're both in the top 5. If I was making my list, I think they're both right there in the top 5. I might go Sampson a little bit. No, I don't know. He lost 2 titles there. Few that he's been to 2 national championships. It's probably Few. You're probably right.
Yeah, he's been so consistent. I didn't think this team was going to get to a Sweet 16. You saw them earlier in the year. It's like this team's not anywhere close to being good, and they had a complete turnaround. So, yeah, I really like what Gonzaga's done. Just real quick, last thing to recap yesterday, we saw a great game end of the night between Creighton and Oregon. Creighton, no depth at all, and it becomes an issue at some point. I mean, they had guys in the last 2 games playing like 80-something minutes total. It's a lot. So that the depth is a concern. But Creighton legit here, right? What do we think of Creighton heading it? Because I think Tennessee's a tough matchup, but certainly a winnable one because we all know Rick Barnes' sketchy history in the NCAA tournament. There's a lot of talent, though. I would say out of all the Big East teams outside of UConn, even just comparing to the Marquette, I think Creighton looks better than Marquette at this point. Creighton looks pretty good, but is this fatigue going to set in at any point for?
I have Gonzaga, Creighton in my Elite 8.
Nice. Okay.
And I know exactly how that's going to play out. Like I've kind of
is it going to be Gonzaga?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I have Gonzaga going to the national championship game. I think they're that good, and the down year BS that everyone's been spouting. Well, you haven't really watched the games over the last 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, it changed dramatically over the last.
This isn't like a flash in the pan. This is like a coach that made adjustments throughout the season. Illinois is kind of the same way too, in some respects, where they've kind of made adjustments throughout the season and fine-tuned themselves. I say that because I read a story about it this morning. But I think Creighton, Tennessee is going to be fascinating. And if you end up having Gonzaga, Purdue, I mean, you have the narratives right there, right? Rick Barnes, Matt Painter. Can you get the job done in the second weekend against 2 established powerhouses? I think it's going to be fascinating to watch, and all the pressure is going to be on them. That being said, dude's got to get through today.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Also do want to shout out as well, Dana Altman. Awesome coaching job.
Incredible.
Incredible.
One of the most underrated coaches in the country.
Yeah.
top 5 in there with me.
Yeah.
I think he's top 5 to 10 as well. I really, really do. But I just wanted to chime in on Gonzaga Creighton
Yeah.
because I have that as well in the Elite Eight. I think that Creighton gets there. I think Gonzaga gets there. Gonzaga, the number 7 team in Bartorvik since February 4th, number 2 in offense now. This is not just like some team that just turned it on a week or two ago. Like I fully believe in this Gonzaga run as someone who's holding Gonzaga 40-1 because me and Tansey were on a pod this weekend and I talked myself into it while we were on air, logged off and bet it. And
yeah.
I'm also holding Creighton 50-1. So very much hope we get the Nemhard revenge game in the Elite Eight. And by the way, Nemhard, not a guy who's going to go drop 30, 40 on you or anything like that. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the country. He just totally controls the tempo there for Gonzaga. He had 9 assists in the first 15 minutes of that game against Kansas. And I thought was a big part of the reason that they were able to just kind of run up and down on Kansas in the second half.
And real quick, the Gonzaga-Kansas game, a perfect kind of contrast of roster building in 2024, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bill Self came out yesterday after the press conference, said we've been working on next year's roster for the last month. He knew he got it wrong, whereas Mark Few has delicately balanced the transfer portal with recruiting and done a really good job at it. And Bill Self, although he's done a good job.
Yeah, I mean, credit to coaches that adjust to it. Because, I mean, we know coaches that retired because of it. Jay Wright, didn't
right.
That's not something that he really was interested in doing. And Mark Few, like you just said, he's pretty much embraced everything and found a good balance at Gonzaga, which is not probably the easiest place to recruit, especially in this era of recruiting. So yeah, Mark Few's done an excellent job. And hey, maybe this is the team that finally gets over the hump for him. Who knows?
Good.
But maybe we're going a little too far. Want to get to today's games though. We got the first game, Colorado and Marquette. And again, I like the dogs today a lot, and this is one of them that I'm looking at. Tyler Kolek played well in his first game back in the round of 64. The problem is nobody else other than Jones played well for Marquette, at least in the first half. The second half really turned it on against Western Kentucky. But this Colorado team can score. They can score heavy. They can score fast. This is if Marquette's defense is going to play well and Colorado is going to score, I do actually get concerned if Marquette's offense is going to be smooth enough and operate well enough to be able to keep up with a team like Colorado. I'm actually taking Colorado with getting the 4.5, but I don't know if I'm maybe going too far here with my anti-Marquette type of rhetoric. But Joe Tansey, are the Buffaloes, are they running through into the Sweet 16?
They're a fascinating pick, right? You could at least say that. I mean, they have one loss since February 17th, and that was in the Pac-12 tournament final against Oregon. And I think you can make the argument that maybe in that game, Colorado was a little complacent because the big win was the semifinal win to get them into the NCAA tournament. I think we're going to see offense in this game. I think it's you throw away the first half under all that kind of jargon because it's an early game. This game in Indianapolis, this isn't the weird scheduling yet, like yesterday where they threw Dayton and Arizona and then the Salt Lake City games right away. I think that you're going to see points in this game. I mean, you look at the numbers, you have Marquette, who's 15th and 69th in 2- and 3-point offense. Colorado, who's 45th and 6th in 2- and 3-point offense. And the defensive metrics, they're not that great. And there's still enough pace and efficiency. Everything matches up here where I think you see a decent amount of points a game in the 70s. Also worth noting, if you're someone who likes this stat and uses it in your handicap, Colorado ranks 10th in free throw on KenPom, Marquette 231st. Just keep that in the back of your head. But I think you see there's enough electric guard play in this game. I think Colorado, Eddie Lampkin, this becomes a big game for him against Iguodaro down in the paint. I feel like that's a matchup you got to watch. I think Colorado maybe tries to exploit that. But yeah, I don't see a lot of defense being played here. I think the total's at 150 now. I'm willing to take that. That's 75 each. I think we're going to see a game close to 80.
Yeah, I'm staying away from this one just on like a today angle, but I have a ton of futures on Marquette. It's really opened up for them, the region. They will not have to play a single seeded team to get to the Elite Eight. I mean, they played a 15 seed. They play a 10 seed today. Next round, if they were to win, they would play NC State. So it's really, really opened up for them. Tansey compared it to Purdue a couple of years ago, and it's a great comparison. Purdue, everyone, I mean, me included, I had big futures on Purdue that year. I was a Jaden Ivey believer, and they ran into the Peacocks. They ran into St. Peter's, and they had a letdown. This isn't that, because Colorado has NBA talent. Colorado's a real team. They're not just some upstart, 15 seed. This is the tough. I think this is a much tougher game for Marquette than NC State would be next round, especially with the week off for Tyler Kolek. So this reminds me a lot of Creighton, Oregon from yesterday, and obviously it's a Big East Pac-12 matchup, just like that one was. But there's a lot of similarities in the way that Oregon had Cousinard and Dante. Colorado's got De Silva and Simpson, and if Williams gets hot, like they've got these guys who are legit guys. I'm scared of it. I think if you made me make a pick, I'd say Marquette escapes. I would not touch the line with a 10-foot pole. I'm just hoping Marquette escapes for the futures. It's going to be a really, really tough one. And even, Creighton escaped last night. I think there's a lot of similarities. I think it could go right down to the wire, or it kind of reminded me of another game that I didn't want to touch until the Gambler group chat convinced me to. And thankfully they did, because it cashed. But UNC, I liked UNC.
What an experience that was last night. I think I hit, it was like 28-14, and I hit the group chat, I'm like, take UNC live. And I think a bunch of us cashed on that.
I took it pre-flop. I just took the 3.5. I didn't doubt for a second that was going to hit.
And maybe Marquette can
say had no chance.
No, they didn't.
I think this is similar too. We're short spread, second round, high seed, and maybe they do have a similar thing where they maybe come out flat like they did against Western Kentucky, and they just separate like UNC did, and they handle the game and win convincingly. Maybe it doesn't have to be an OT game like Creighton, or maybe Colorado's an NBA squad who can go to the second weekend. Who knows? But I tend to think Marquette's still coming out of that region. Even
I want to ban.
I would
overtime.
like to
let's ban overtime in college basketball. I don't need it.
I would like to amend my take from earlier. If we get Colorado's NC State in the Sweet 16, that's actually a good game.
That's a fun game.
It's a fun game, but it's power conference teams.
Oh,
I'm not an NC State.
That's the caveat to the double-digit seeds. Like,
put some respect on DJ Burns Jr., Mark Henry Jr.
I think
for one junior to another, show some respect.
Could you imagine DJ Burns versus Eddie Lampkin?
Eddie Lampkin's actually.
Oh,
I don't want to do this.
Oh,
no, don't do that.
I'm not doing that.
No,
DJ Burns is really good.
I saw that.
DJ Burns is really good. That's what I'm saying. DJ Burns is getting more attention than any two players in this tournament put together. We got a little bit of an obsession with big boys. It's what I'm saying. I think
absolutely.
People need to chill out. The big boys. I get it. There's other fun players in the tournament. Just because we got a big boy rolling around doing big stuff. He's awesome. He's a great player. But there's other players doing great things. I think the commensurate coverage. The commensurate coverage for DJ Burns compared to the other games,
that's what the tournament is, Mark.
That's what
it's
you guys?
You guys are such. I cannot believe this. Cinderellas, and then the one player in the tournament that we all have fun with, and Mark's like, oh, I don't know, it's too much.
I'm sick of it. And it was fun. During the conference tournament week too. Like there was all these fun stories. The only one that anyone cared about was this big fella going around and bowling people.
My favorite is when NFL Draft Twitter got a hold of DJ Burns.
I also think I think he gets allowed to do some things that a lot of people don't get allowed to do.
Because he's 6'9", like 280, 290.
Yeah, and people are like, oh, if the NBA doesn't have a spot for DJ Burns, then
NBA does not have a spot for DJ Burns.
He's 280. No, he's not going to be in the NBA. Like,
no, they had a spot for him in like the 80s, maybe, but not.
I learned this a long time ago, and I turned my brain off to this part a very long time ago. The NBA doesn't have a spot for like 99% of these guys.
Absolutely.
And I'm
99.9%.
Yeah, and I'm totally okay with these guys being college basketball legends, and that's it. I'm totally
stay in college. Go 4 years. Heck, go 5 years if you have to. We will appreciate it, and college basketball would be better for it. Let's move on to the next game. Utah State, Purdue, and I love the guy's name. I butcher his last name, but great. Osibor, you got it. Osibor. There we go. But he's 6'8", really good post player. The problem is he's going up against Zach Edey, who's 7 foot tall. That matchup to me is interesting. If Utah State can get anything inside, and Osibor is good, a great player, for lack of a better word there, because his name is great. But I find this matchup interesting. Mark, I know you like Utah State today at 11.5.
Yeah, it's my favorite play of the day. I'm in big on Utah State. Great Osborne, incredible offensive player. I think he's a really good face up. I think they do a lot of drive and cut stuff that's exactly what you want to do against Zach Edey. He's not very fast laterally. That's why there might not be a spot for him in the NBA.
There's no spot for him in the
there
NBA.
definitely isn't a spot for him in the NBA.
No.
He's ranked 20th on the Ringers NBA
That's ridiculous.
draft thing. It blew me away. I thought he'd go undrafted. It blew me away to see that. So maybe he will get drafted. Who knows?
He's got to shoot threes to even have a chance.
I totally agree, and I don't see that happening. So the Aggies of Osborne, who I think he is an absolute perfect matchup offensively. I'm worried defensively. I can't lie. This isn't the exact team I would pick to go up against Purdue and give Edey the problems. It's a little bit of a matchup problem in terms of their interior defense. Great Osborne is a really good defender interior. He's 6'8". And that hasn't killed them against a ton of guys. I don't think that's going to work against Edey. I think they're going to have to come up with an interesting strategy.
Well, it's almost almost let Edey do his thing and don't let the perimeter guys be able to shoot threes outside of that. Because then, Edey's only in the paint scoring twos. You can keep up with that. You can't keep up if there's a sprinkle of threes, a healthy amount of threes from Purdue from the outside.
To that point, Utah State ranks third in 3-point defense on KenPom.
Yeah, they do. And that's the part of it that's very good, because it's really the only part of this matchup is just that freak down there, that alien Zach Edey. And if they're able to just slow him down, because if they can, not only do I like them to cover the 11.5, I think they could make something magical happen and potentially win.
Oh, they'll be close enough to do it. Right. I think they'll be within striking distance to do that.
For instance, looking at the 8-9 matchups, or the one seed matchups against the 8-9 teams, I think Utah State has a much better chance than Texas A&M or obviously Northwestern.
Oh, definitely.
Today, yeah. I think Utah State has the best chance of those teams to really put a scare in, and I think that we've talked about Matt Painter a lot in March. Danny Sprinkle is a rising star. What he did at Utah State this year.
That's an amazing. If he ever becomes a sports gambling media personality, that is already the greatest name of all time.
I don't know if he's gonna have personality. I don't know if he's gonna have to do that, because I think he might be like the coach of Kentucky.
I know, right? I'm about to start calling myself Johnny Sprinkles.
It's an awesome name. It's why I'm telling you. Put a little Danny Sprinkle on the money line. I'm putting a little Danny Sprinkle on plus 500 on the money line. It's because of the drive and cut. Osborne's averaging, by the way, 20 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks since March started. So this is a guy who can absolutely become a star today. Danny Sprinkle can put his name in every big coaching job. That's
Louisville needs a coach.
Louisville does need a coach. Kentucky might need a coach. Indiana might need a coach soon. Maybe not yet, but maybe if someone came available. There's a lot of things out there.
By the way, Indiana missed the boat on Dusty May.
I'm not high on Dusty May. I'll be honest.
I know you're not.
They did a bad job this year. Dusty May did a great job last year. That was a good team this year. John L. Davis, the Golden, they had a lot of talent, returned a lot of talent from a Final Four team. They just seemed complacent all year. And I gave them it was a hangover, but I gave them some credit to be like, all right, it's hard to get through the AAC or to, and feel motivated. When they get to the tournament, it'll be fine. I thought he got outcoached by Chris Collins in that game in the first round. Looked like he was already booking flights to Ann Arbor, when the game went to overtime. So I did not walk away that impressed from the Dusty May 2023-2024 year.
Are we buying into the trend that one of the 1 or 2 seeds has to go down this weekend?
Yeah, it's got to be Purdue. Got to be the Boilers.
Ooh. If it is, it'd be the Boilers. I don't see any of the other.
Well, Marquette. You think it could be Marquette too?
Oh, Marquette. Yeah. For the 2, yeah, it could be.
We don't, and I know this is kind of a broad conversation to apply to these specific matchups, but one of the 1 or 2 seeds, there's always that one shock, right? Mm-hmm. And if you look at the first round, and I know some people may believe this, some don't. One day is usually a snooze fest with a handful, 1 or 2 upsets, and the other day is usually insane. And Friday was the insane day because we had JMU leading that pack.
Oh, and guess what teams are playing today?
Yeah, exactly. Teams. Playing on the Sunday slate. And it went completely chalk yesterday. So
massive chalk.
Yeah.
Just all chalk.
And that typically doesn't happen in the end. Usually there's one exception to the rule, right? So when you look at across the board, you have UConn against Northwestern, which I think everybody. I'm not saying it'll happen, but that would be the perfect March thing where like everybody's on UConn.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the one I'm looking
I
at.
don't think, like I said, I don't think it'll happen, but like that would be
Northwestern stinks.
right. But that would be the one where that would be the stunner, right?
It would.
Out of all the 8 today. Purdue, Utah State, I think we can say because of Purdue's history and their track record, you can at least be like, okay, not too surprised. James Madison, I think you can be like, well, they took Wisconsin basically wire to wire, so why not? Why can't they do it again? And then I have a hard time buying into Texas A&M beating Houston.
Very hard time.
So I think is it Utah State or bust or Colorado or bust? Like, is this first 2 games in Indianapolis where we have to see the upset because we just don't think UConn or Houston has any chance of losing today?
Yeah, it could be. Let's continue to go ahead though. The 4 and 12, the Dukes against Duke. I love the Dukes getting the 7.5. James Madison, legit college basketball team. It's crazy that they wouldn't have made the tournament if they didn't win their conference tournament. This has been one of the best college basketball teams all year. This isn't a bamboozled team like McNeese, who had 3 losses, but they were not any good. I guess credit to Gonzaga there, but McNeese did not look like they belonged anywhere near a tournament. But James Madison, they look good. They looked the part. And Duke's not my favorite team from the ACC, and it's not one of my favorite Duke teams. I think it's a very flawed team. They get offense from really a couple of players, and then their offense sputters at times a lot. I like James Madison. I think James Madison's going to keep this close, and I think they could potentially win this game.
I like the under in this game.
That's good too.
148.
Yeah, I like that.
So the way I look at the numbers, first and foremost, you have 2 teams that are top 100 in 3-point defense. JMU being number 2. And what was the one thing we pointed out in the Wisconsin matchup? That it was just the 3-point defending was elite. Duke's going to have to figure out a way in this game. Duke doesn't like to play like super fast. You know, they like to control the tempo. They'll feed it into Filipowski. And this isn't the most electric Duke team you've seen in your lifetime. Like, no. I think we can all be pretty honest with that. To me, I think for Duke, it comes down to, we know what Roach and Filipowski can do, but can a guy like Jared McCain step up in a game like this and turn it into a one side of the fair and kind of counterbalance? Like, I think the way Duke wins this game is their veterans show up. Because what did JMU do to Wisconsin? I mean, they punked them. They just smothered them on the defensive end and made them uncomfortable from the start. So the key for Duke is their guards just have to slow it down,
stay poised,
everything. I think they'll do that, but I'm not going to sit here and say this is going to be the most high-scoring game here. I think you're going to see game in the 60s. It's going to be methodical. I mean, look what Duke did against Vermont. They want to make this a methodical, slow burn. And I think JMU, with the way to defend the 3, is going to be able to keep up with that as well. So I'm going to take the under 148 in that game.
Yeah, I have a Duke Sweet 16 future at minus 110. That's my focus on this game. But I woke up this morning thinking like, maybe I'm going to hedge. Like I'll hedge JMU plus 7.5. That way I have a middle where Duke wins, JMU covers 7.5. I'll be a happy camper. I thought about doing that. The more I look at the game and the more I think about it, I think we're talking ourselves too much into JMU. I think I've talked about this for a while. I think there's a chance we're really underselling Duke just as like a national title contender.
And I hate that, but yeah.
I think it's a possibility. I'm not saying they showed up in that UNC game at home as flat as you could show up for a big test performance. I don't want to put everything into that one bad game, though. You look at since February started, Duke is the number 4 team in Bartorvik, only behind Houston, UConn, and Iowa State. Like, that is a pretty impressive thing. And I mean, James Madison's 12-0, and they're 48th in that stretch. So there is something to be said. And this is a Duke team that's 13th in offense, 14th in defense. They can win a game a lot of different ways. I wouldn't touch the 7.5. Maybe that's a live betting game. The more I'm thinking about it, I'm preaching a little bit of caution on the Dukes going up against Duke.
Yeah, I think Duke has a little bit of Gonzaga to them.
Yeah.
Where just because this is a not so great Duke compared to its standard, they're still really good. And I mean, it'd be nice to hate on Duke in the second weekend, but it'd also be nice to bring out the Duke hate and root for JMU today. I would love that as well. I just think it's going to be a low-scoring game, so I'm going to take the under. I'm a little hesitant on the spread, like you said, because Duke is very efficient. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah, they are efficient. I will say that, and that's going to be really tough because JMU, like you just said, smothered Wisconsin. Wisconsin was turning the ball over, really bad shots. Duke can find that, but I don't know. I think it's just going to be low-scoring enough that 7.5.
Right, and Wisconsin also told us who they were for the last 6 weeks.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's big. I'm done with the Big Ten. I guess Illinois is going on a run, so I can't say that.
Yeah, Illinois.
Illinois. Yeah,
Illinois look great. I want to push not go too far in Illinois because I have been impressed, but it's Duquesne and Morehead State, so
that's
I don't want to go too far. But
that's fair.
I have been pretty impressed.
The Wisconsin push that people were pushing after that Big Ten tournament, Joe and I were. I mean, they were 3-8.
Well, look,
the one that got me. I saw Nebraska the first minute against Texas A&M. It's like Nebraska looks like a high school team against them.
Yeah.
There's no way.
I
knew immediately I lost that bet.
I bought into Iowa. What was it, 2 years ago when they won the Big Ten tournament? Mm-hmm. I'm never doing that again with the Big Ten tournament team. Absolutely not. I know they didn't win it, but like I'm not. Any team that makes a deep run in the Big Ten tournament is not fooling me anymore.
So one conference that's actually doing well, and we can move on to the ACC is actually not doing bad. Baylor's taking on Clemson. Clemson 4.5-point dog. I wish it was higher. Like I would have loved it if it was 6, 5.5, 6, but I think 4.5 is a really good number. I'm still taking Clemson as the dog. Man, I love PJ Hall. And Baylor shot lights out against Colgate, but they're gonna have to do that again. And we know Baylor can be a little bit inconsistent. I know, Mark, you've been not so high on Baylor, right? If I remember correctly. But in this matchup, though, is this a Baylor win? Is this a good matchup for Baylor, or is Clemson kind of showing us a bit here that they showed us something against New Mexico?
So I'm afraid here that I'm talking myself into Clemson more out of I've been.
You've not been a fan of Baylor, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't been a big Clemson guy. I don't think I've really had like a concrete opinion on them either way, to be quite honest. But I am talking myself into Clemson covering and potentially winning this game. I think the winner of this game is in for a loss anyway, the next round against Arizona. But Clemson's 6-1 against the spread as a dog, 4 outright wins as a dog. So they've been pretty good in this spot. Their 2 best players, PJ Hall and Joe Girard, they struggled in that first round win, which is one of the craziest parts about that. PJ Hall, an all ACC guy, played only 19 minutes because he got in foul trouble. Girard was 2 for 12. And this is a team that dominated in that game. In New Mexico, obviously the 3 for 23 from 3 helps a lot there. But Clemson dominated that game, got up early and stayed up the entire time. They really struggled in the last couple months. They had a really uneven just conference play in general in 2024. But through the first 2 months of the year, Clemson was the number 15 team in the country in Bartorvik. Now, that's speaking out of both sides of my mouth because a lot of the times I tell you, throw out November, throw out December. I'm not the biggest non-con guy in general.
And I kind of agree with that. I do agree with that.
But where I'm going to use it here is I'm going to say we've seen Clemson reach high peaks before. They beat Alabama and Boise State back-to-back games in the non-con. They were, like I said, the number 15 team through the first 2 months. At least we've seen them put up an elite stretch before. So I'm kind of clinging on to that a little bit. Baylor's 3-5 in their last 8 games against tourney teams, 6-9 in their last 15 games against tourney teams. Now, obviously, they've played a lot more tourney teams than Clemson has. But this is more just out of I think Baylor's a fraud. I really, really do.
I think Baylor's going to smash Clemson today.
Man, thanks, Joe.
I think Scott Drew is going to just run circles around Brad Brownell. I think Scott Drew can get his team to the Sweet 16 very easily.
That's the most concerning part.
Yeah,
definitely.
I know we had a debate about coaching yesterday. This is where coaching takes over and matters, and experience in this stage matters. I think Baylor -4 might be your easiest play of the day. I don't rate Clemson a lot.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't.
Easiest play of the day, and Mark and I are
Yeah.
on the other side. That's great.
Yeah,
Good.
I think I woke up, looked at all the lines, and Baylor at the 4 was just speaking to me the most out of.
I will say that
I
I felt like that line was pretty short when I saw it. I did feel like it was short.
I understand the respect for Clemson. I just think Baylor has better athletes. They have the better coach. They cruised again. It's Colgate, New Mexico, and I don't think we rated. At least I didn't rate those teams too highly. But man, I feel like this is a game that that Baylor cruises, and then we're all like, "Well, wait, Baylor? They're in the Sweet 16 again?" I honestly think this is going to be a blowout.
Yeah. Let's go on to the next one. Alabama, Grand Canyon. Alabama 5.5-point favorite.
This is the one that scares me. This is the one that scares me.
I loved Grand Canyon heading into this day. I was so ready to bet Grand Canyon. But I think Alabama's offense went through its problems at the end of the SEC conference schedule and into the SEC tournament. Offense absolutely had its problems. I don't think it's going to have problems in the tournament. Yesterday or a couple days ago, they looked great. I think they'll be fine against Grand Canyon. Once you get into the second weekend, maybe we start talking about their defense a little bit more and how that could be a problem with them moving on. But I think their offense is going to be too much for Grand Canyon here. I think they can get close to the 90s and 100s again. This team is shooting lights out. Their offense moves very quickly, and I think Grand Canyon is going to have a very, very tough time keeping up with that pace.
I'll take the over 170.
Nice, okay.
I usually hate the high numbers, but, I mean, Alabama was really, really impressive against Charleston, and I doubted them. I did. I was on Charleston. I thought Alabama's poor defense was really going to be their Achilles heel, but I think it's just a matter of talent here. Like, Alabama is incrementally better than Charleston and Grand Canyon. And I don't think that's a wild take. They're just better than two mid-major teams. And that's perfectly okay. I agree with you. Once we flip over to the second weekend, then I think the Alabama talk maybe becomes a little bit different because they'll run in the UNC. I think that's how the bracket is.
Yeah.
That's a whole different world of a matchup. But I think in this one, I'll take Bama with the 6.5 too in the over. I feel like this is a game where the guard play of Alabama just overwhelms Grand Canyon, just like it did with Charleston. And Charleston's a good mid-major team. They came into the NCAA tournament on a pretty decent run out.
They put up 96 points. It's not like they were terrible.
Exactly. Good. Which it still speaks to Alabama's defense being
definitely.
So yeah, exactly. I think Grand Canyon will score. I know their defensive metrics are pretty high. But
well, how about this? Alabama
SEC
right now
talent matters.
Is like Lincoln Riley's Oklahoma teams. They could probably beat a lot of these mid-major schools or other schools.
For sure.
They can win 70-40, and their defense is going to be bad, but their offense is going to be so good it doesn't matter. But then once you get to the good teams and your offense can't put up 70, then your defense gives up 50 points, and you're not going to win that game. So it's a little bit of that with Alabama. I love them against the Charlestons and the Grand Canyons. Once they get past that, it's incredibly difficult, and I don't know if they're going to end up winning those games. But for this one, I do like Alabama. Mark, Alabama?
I lean that way. I'm not going to bet this game because the same way I said I wasn't going to bet a Kentucky game in this tournament. I'm just not going to have my pants pulled down by Alabama or Kentucky and get caught, with the performance we've seen from those defenses so many times. It's just going to be so easy for a shooting variance game to take in Alabama out of the tournament with the way that Nate Oates plays. And I think Nate Oates is generally a good coach. I think I generally agree with his principles in terms of 3 being more than 2. But I think...
that's math.
That's just math. I don't even have to agree with it. But I think that at a certain point, defense matters. And I think that they just haven't made that adjustment. This isn't even an Alabama team in the past. Like Brandon Miller was a really good defender. Herb Jones was a really good defender. I'm missing another wing from the last couple of years that's moved on to the NBA that was a good defender as well. But they've had those guys. I don't think they have that guy that can even step up in late game possessions on this. And this is a Grand Canyon. But I will say, I lean Alabama because I'm not really high on Grand Canyon either. Like this is a Grand Canyon team that shot 42% against St. Mary's. They shot 27% from 3. Now you can point to that and say, oh, well, regression. They only shot 18 threes. Like I don't think this is the recipe for a team that's going on a deep run. I've talked about how their home court advantage is such an environment that I think that it's a benefit. That doesn't look smart right now. They got through their 5 seed matchup. I thought they were a home court merchant. one more chance for me to kind of prove that here. But like I said, Bama could shoot 3 for 30 from 3. And, the Antelopes, Sean Bernard and Jerry Colangelo's Grand Canyon Antelopes could be moving on to the second weekend.
This, I think, is the game where if an upset happens, we fast forward to after that game and we're like, well, we saw it coming with Alabama.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that if it happens, we'll all look back.
Defense was going to get them eliminated at some point, and eliminated maybe against a bad team or not.
Right.
I think
team. That if that does happen, we'll all look back and go, well, you know what? We should have picked Grand Canyon. I just think SEC talent and the guard talent, Aaron Estrada's, that's Jersey's shout out, that they're going to end up beating Grand Canyon pretty bad, and then there's going to be a lot of points.
Do we even have to talk about the next game?
I was about to say, I was about to do it quick. It's just UConn, right? UConn?
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm not on it, but yeah, they're going to win by.
No, I'm on it. I'm taking UConn. I think Northwestern's offense is going to be in the 50s, and UConn's going to score 80. This is going to be a blowout. It's a big-time blowout.
So you taking the over?
No, I haven't been taking a lot of totals because I'm not good with totals. I know things that I'm good and not good at, or at least try to think that I do. But now I'm not. But does that mean you're taking the over? Are you thinking of it?
Hold on 1 second. I'm getting the number up because
I'm retired from tournament totals. I
can't do it. 135.5. I think I saw.
No, I'm looking for the team total for.
Oh, team total
for UConn.
Josh, what would their team total be? Because if it's anything lower than 80, it's UConn. UConn's gonna. I mean, Northwestern. They're tough and they're physical. UConn is great against that. Like you can't be physical with UConn. That's the problem with why they're so great. You can't be physical with them. You're not faster than them. You're not stronger than them. UConn's just better than you.
Lock me in. It's UConn team total over 74.5.
Yeah, lock it in. I like that.
A fun stat that shows why I should be retired from tournament totals. I am 0-3 at minus 12 units when betting totals in this tournament. I am 18-10 at plus 18 units when betting sides in this tournament.
Nice.
Just stop betting. Just stop betting totals. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm done.
Yeah, I'm in the green for the tournament so far, so I'm happy. After the bludgeoning I took during the regular season,
I am there. I am in green thanks to JMU and Utah State on Friday night, but the record isn't. It could use some work today. I'll say that.
How about maybe we can get some more work in with Houston and Texas A&M? Again, really impressive Texas A&M, but they are very guard heavy, and I don't know if Wade Taylor's going to find open shots the way he did against Nebraska. Texas A&M was just athletically much better than Nebraska. It's a little bit different here with Houston. Houston's going to smother them. I don't know how high scoring of a game, so 9.5 gets a little bit tough because I'm not sure what Houston's offense is going to be, but I think there's going to be a regression in shooting numbers for Texas A&M, and I think there's going to just be a difference in the style of play Houston has against Nebraska. Houston now is the much stronger, faster, better team, and I think defensively they're going to smother Texas A&M.
Texas A&M under 62.5 points.
Wow, yeah. Well, now if that happens, I definitely love the 9.5. So I did take it. But
I'm taking the under on that. Let's look at Houston's last few games here. They held long with the 46, Texas Tech 59, TCU 45, Kansas 46, UCF 59. That is 5 straight wins in which they've held the opponent under 60 points, let alone the 62. Cincinnati, Texas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Texas Tech, UCF. Let's just go look up and down this set of games. Dayton, Xavier, all of these teams that have been held under 62.5 points by Houston. I think that the guard matchup just overwhelms A&M today. The shot making was excellent against Nebraska, but this is a matchup-based tournament, right? And the matchup for Texas A&M was excellent against Nebraska. It is awful against Houston because what does A&M love to do? Run through their guards, Wade Taylor and Boots Radford. Well, Houston has been known for their guard play to just smother you. I think they put Texas A&M in a sleeper hold, and A&M doesn't even
I do too. I feel that way.
I don't even think they get close to 60. So 62.5 on the under, I love.
It's funny because I took a similar angle when I did my research, but mine's on the 9.5. I'm on Houston minus 9.5. I like Tansey's angle there from the under. If I wasn't retired, I'd be taking it. Sure, 9.5 is a lot of points, and I think everyone's going to point to that. The A&M people, the beef cave over there, they rode A&M the other day. I'm sure they'll want to ride again today. 9.5 is a lot of points, but Houston's beaten Texas Tech by 23 twice, TCU by 15, Kansas by 30, Texas by 21, Dayton by 15, and the list goes on and on if you wanted to include like the non-tournament teams. But I just did the recent tournament wins. And then obviously A&M 6-1 in their last 7. Good wins in there for sure. But they had lost 5 straight before that. Directly before that, they went on an 0-5 run. Before this 6-1 stretch, they had a 10-13 stretch dating back to the non-con. I think this hot streak ends when you go up against the Kelvin Sampson chainsaw. I think you're exactly right with how both of you kind of handicapped it being under 60. I think it's going to be like a 75-55 win.
I'll take the 9 as well with Houston. I'm not afraid.
Let's go. Nice.
It's 9 now? Ugh, I have 9.5. Yeah.
So the last one, Yale, San Diego State. I'm kind of throwing a dart here at Yale. I don't know. Just Ivy League school in the Sweet 16 makes a lot of sense here. It was a great win against Auburn. Auburn, though, probably missed every single opportunity you could possibly have in the final 2 minutes to win that game, and they didn't.
Which is Auburn of 2024. Like that's
incredibly Auburn to do that, but they missed everything. So Yale sort of lucky to be here. Still a good win against Auburn. San Diego State, I wasn't too impressed against UAB. I don't know. I'm just throwing a dart. I really don't have any kind of breakdown on this one. I think it's going to be ugly. I think it's going to be such a weird game. So just give me the points in a game like this at 5.5, and that's really all I can say about this one.
I'm sitting on a San Diego State to make the Sweet 16 ticket at over plus 200. So I'm not
nice. Okay.
Yeah. I have them. I put them in a round robin with Gonzaga, St. Mary's, and Drake. So I already have my money locked in on San Diego State on the single end to make a little money on the round robin if Gonzaga or to join Gonzaga in that group. I got burned by Drake and St. Mary's. I thought Drake, by the way, to go back to the point, I thought Drake would have been the team to knock off 2 seed. I was very confident in them, but as we know, they can't finish.
I thought it was Texas, but they put forth one of the worst offensive game plans I've ever seen. And they still covered. Shout out to them, though.
So Yale or San Diego State, Mark Henry Jr.?
I'm on San Diego State. I think one of the most underrated. I think Jaden Leday is one of the best, 3 or 4 players in the country. I really do. He's averaging 21 and 9 this year, and they only have one other guy in double figures, and he's barely in double figures. But I've harped on it. I don't think there's been. This is part of why I got upset with the DJ Burns stuff. I don't think anyone has talked about how amazing Jaden Leday was. And I know they're a 5 seed. You're not supposed to struggle to beat a 12 seed, and that's part of it. That UAB San Diego State game was a really good game. No one's talked about it because the 5 seed won. They won 69-65.
He ran that game.
What?
He ran that game.
He was the only reason San Diego State won that game. He had 32 and 8, a block and a steal. He was incredibly efficient, 9 for 10 from the foul line as well. Every time they needed a bucket, he went and got a bucket. They needed a defensive play. He went and guarded their best player and got a stop. No one talked all weekend about how great Jaden Leday was in that game, and I don't think there's been enough talk all season about how awesome Jaden Leday has been. I think he's the type of guy that can carry them. No one else really showed up in that game for them. They do have other guys who were on the team last year, Butler, Trammell. They have other guys who can step up maybe. Maybe that happens here. Maybe he doesn't need to go nuts. But now at least we know he has the ability to go nuts if they need him to.
Well, I think that's kind of how it balances out, right? So your one guy carried you now. Now do we see the complete team effort of San Diego State? And that's what makes them a potentially dangerous opponent for UConn. I think they're the first team that could actually challenge UConn in the tournament. Not saying that they'll win that game, but I think that's a fascinating game because of all the factors around it, including last year.
Yeah, I'm taking Yale, so I'll be the only one. I just want the dogs today. So dogs are barking a little bit. So we did go over a few dogs there. So I don't think all favorites today, right? We're not going to have that again.
You're Cody Rhodes. You're the one. What's this all about?
I got to finish the story.
Did Brace text you on the side and be like, "Hey, the dogs are barking today"? That's my thought. Somebody
has So yesterday, it was crazy. Yesterday, I had the thought of I think every favorite's going to win today. I literally went through it, and the only one I didn't have was Iowa State, and they ended up maybe being the easiest one. But I went through. I was like, man, all the favorites look great today. And then I looked at this card and went, kind of like the dogs. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a reverse. It was a chaotic day. Like you said, chaotic Friday. I think a little bit chaotic today as well with those same squads. Well done all weekend. I do want to say well done all weekend. Joe Tansey, Mark Henry Jr., all these streams presented by AAA. Be ready. Get AAA. They have been a great sponsoring partner all weekend, and I think it's going to be for the rest of the tournament. So very excited to have AAA aboard. It's been a great weekend, great first weekend, a winning first weekend for a lot of us, right? I know
Yes.
I am, which if I am, I think everybody else is. Because if I am, that means the public's winning. Because I'm all chalk over here.
Johnny
So-
Public.
Johnny Red X, Johnny Public, Johnny Sprinkles, whatever you want to call me.
Real
I'm quick.
all
of it.
Let me
Yes.
throw it out. Let me
Oh,
throw
no,
it out because I think
what
it's my second favorite play of the day. I just wanted to throw it out there. It is a basketball game.
Oh, you're gonna do an NBA game. Oh, I'm about to end the stream right now.
Warriors team total over 107.5 against the Timberwolves. They've scored 108 plus in 7 of the last 8, 10 of the last 12, 27 of the last 31.
How do I mute your mic? Can I
Give me
mute
the
your mic?
Warriors team total. Throw on there. Throw the Thunder on there too. Thunder plus 3.5. Doc Rivers stinks.
All right, it's time to end the stream. Thank
It
you
is.
guys all weekend. Joe Tansey, Mark Henry Jr., Sean Brace, who jumped on a few streams as well. Beef, did he join in from the gambling cave? I don't know if he did, but he was joining us all weekend on the Daily Ticket.
Have we gotten a check-in on Beef yet? Have we
Mom Ziti is getting a lot of run. I think Mom Ziti is doing very well in the gambling cave household. So hopefully more Ziti for the boys there. Hopefully more winners for the boys. Hopefully more winners today for everyone. Enjoy the final day of the first weekend here in March Madness. Stay tuned for more. We'll be on all weekend Daily Ticket Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 on The Gambler.